but he's man of the hour. He's our governor. He's our governor to be elected. Gatewood, Galbraith from Kentucky. Let's hear it from him.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis. Thank each and every one of you for being here. One thing I've learned in the movement, in activism, is that a little effort goes a long ways. And for all of you all who have put out a great effort, I thank you very much. To John Entwistle and his lady friend Kamalia, who have put this on, whose brainchild this was. I mean, these people deserve everything that you can give them in the way of accolades. These people have come together, the gentleman, the politician from California, and all the rest of the people, the ladies who, and the gentlemen who put this meal together for us. You know, I sat up many, many days wondering what I was going to tell the crowd in California about what my being a governor candidate in Kentucky means to you all. And you know, I decided that what I wanted to do to let you know what I'm doing in the state of Kentucky is to give you the speech that I give the people in the state of Kentucky. To let you all know what's reaching the people of the state of Kentucky. To let you all know how to package life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and dignity and the relationship with Mother Earth and the right to gain your fiber, fuel, medicine, and fuel from Mother Earth, how that is gaining acceptance in the hinterlands and the breadbaskets of America. It's gaining acceptance in the poor states, in the topographically deprived states like Appalachia, Eastern Kentucky, and the Ozarks and the Rockies, and every place else where people have turned to the most basic relationship in their life with Mother Earth to gain the sustenance in those categories and in the economic growth that it brings to a region to feed their families and house their hungry and their homeless and to take care of the basic necessities of life. So I'm going to let you all know. I'd like to tell you all what I tell the people in the state of Kentucky. Well, thank you for letting me be here tonight. You always got to start out with that. You know, the other day I was on a TV program when the moderator came on. He looked into the camera and said, while other candidates for governor are running on better schools and more roads, Gatewood Galbraith's running on legalizing marijuana. And I said, hold it right there, Bob. Let's get something straight. Just like these other candidates, I envision better schools, and I envision more roads, and I envision delivery of health care to the rural areas, and feeding our hungry and housing our homeless. The only difference between me and these other candidates is that I figured out a way to pay for it without putting it on the shoulders of the already overflowing taxpayers. Kentucky is first in teenage pregnancy, first in illiteracy, and we have the lowest life expectancy in the world, and I'll be damned if anybody's doing us any favors. We're going to reach back to our heritage and history and start making our own favors for the people of Kentucky. We are no longer... If the limit of our vision on paying our way out of the cellar dweller status in the life and the indexes of life, if our only method of coming out of this vicious cycle is to take it out of the wages of the working men and women of the state of Kentucky, we're going to stay first in teenage pregnancy and first in illiteracy and have the lowest life expectancy. What I have done is identified already existent discretionary streams of commerce, the fruits of which are ending up in hands of people far less deserving than the starving children of this state, than the people who go out and work 40 and 50 hours a day and have continuously heavy tax placed on them just because government's been let out of the box and is becoming over big and over broad and feeding on itself and impinging upon our private lives. I tell you, I'm going to redirect the billions of dollars going down here to the Manuel Noriegas of the world. My first day in office, I'm going to ground every helicopter the state of Kentucky owns. There's not going preserving over the fields and gardens of the people of the state of Kentucky. Yeah. This is America, not Afghanistan, and we're not an occupied territory, and I'm not going to treat us like we are. That I want to do by taking this money and raising it as a cash crop. I'm a practical man. I might not get my marijuana program through, but I'll take those National Guards that I took out of the helicopters and I will make them put their work clothes on, and I will personally lead the National Guard up in eastern Kentucky and Appalachia, and we will use National Guard labor and the federal dollar to place those wastewater and sewage treatment facilities in these small communities that are drinking unfit water and living in this poverty. Obscene that we have 66 out of Kentucky's 120 counties that can't even afford to educate their own children, and yet the Kentucky public is sending out hundreds of millions of dollars, and the American public is sending out billions of dollars in tax-free income to the international criminal syndicates in South America and Mexico for a plant my granddaddy used to grow by the thousands of acres, and I'm going to redirect that money out of the hands of these international criminal syndicates, and I'm going to put them into the capital tax coffers of Frankfurt so I can lift the people of Kentucky out of poverty and out of the misery and out of these last place standard living. And not only am I going to redirect this money, but I'm going to redefine the role of government in policing private behavior in the state of Kentucky. We live in a police state. We live in a police state. You can leave here, go out and get in your car, and they can set up a random roadblock in front of you, make you get out of your car, bring a dog up to sniff you, your car, and all its belongings, take blood out of your arm, make you pee in a bottle, and stick their hands where the sun don't shine. That's a police state. That's a police state no matter how else you make it. You think John Wayne would put up with that? You think John Wayne would put up with that? John's riding his horse down the trail and they drop a log in front of him and say, John, get off that horse. We're going to take blood out of your arm, got to pee in this bucket, we're going to stick our fingers up your butt. I think John Wayne would say, I'm afraid not, Pilgrim. This is where I draw my line in the sand, and this is where we're drawing the line in the sand in the state of Kentucky. We're going to return privacy and individual dignity and freedom to each and every individual in the state of Kentucky, and get the police out of the business of promoting morality and put them back in the business of promoting law and order in the state of Kentucky. I tell you, we're not going to solve this drug problem by doubling the prison population over the next 20 years. Any government that tells you that we're going to solve a present-day problem by doubling the prison population over the next 20 years has its head stuck where it's never going to discover the 1,000 points of light of George Bush. I'm going to make the marijuana smoker and producer start paying their fair share of the burden of government, and I'm going to get government off of their backs. I'm going to get them off of their backs. I don't mind. If I don't want to grow my own, I don't mind spending $100 an ounce for top-grade sesame, as long as they take those helicopters out of the air. And I know it's going to put a hot breakfast on the table of every school kid who comes to school in the state of Kentucky. You can't teach a hungry kid, and it's damn time we started putting this money into nutrition and delivery of health services to the people of this country who cannot afford it, and the people who are diagnosed with ailments for which marijuana is the very best medicine, and it is obscene to continue to deny these people the very best medicine that God put on earth. This is not a game. This is not a game. This is life and death for millions of Americans. And it is not illegal because it drives you crazy or leads you to harder drugs. Hell, marijuana's a barrier to harder drugs. If marijuana wasn't around, I'd be drinking wine coolers. This is not some political transitory flare in the night. This is taking some common sense solutions and trying to apply them to some common sense problems. and trying to take care of some of the other problems of this society while we're at it. The reason that marijuana is illegal is the same reason that our rural economy has gone under. You know, 100 years ago, we didn't have a lot of these problems. 100 years ago, we had nuclear families. The divorce rate was nowhere what it is today. You could depend on leaving your farm from one generation to another. You could be born and grow up and fall in love and raise a family and live and die in a small town. The economy would support you. We didn't have all of the pressures on the inner urban centers. We didn't have the environmental problems we had today. That's because 100 years ago, the farmer raised all of the fiber, all of the medicine, all of the fuel, and all of the food that this society consumed. That's what farming is, the heritage and the history of raising it up off the land and selling it in the cities and making your living. And it was a great distribution for wealth because the land was a means of production of wealth. Today, 100 years later, the farmer doesn't raise any fiber. If he does, it's cotton, which accounts for 50% of the pesticides and herbicides used in the agricultural sector. He doesn't raise any medicine. It's all been monopolized by the pharmaceutical companies. He or she does not raise any fuel. It's all been monopolized by the petrochemical companies. And if you go into a grocery store and look at the ingredients in a package anytime, you will find out how rapidly the farmer is being displaced from their heritage of food production. It has all been taken over by the synthetic manufacturers who, in producing these synthetic products, create the toxic waste and the hazardous byproducts with which we have such tough time dealing. And I'm going to put the Kentucky farmer back into competition with those synthetic monopolies in a production of fiber and oil and medicine. This is not a game. This is not a movement. People say, Galbraith, you're a visionary. I say, no, I'm a historian. They say, Galbraith, you're talking about the year 2010. I say, no, I'm talking about the year 1776. I am not going to be a slave or a criminal in my own country. I am not going to be a second-class citizen in my own state. I am not going to be looked down upon by anyone, anywhere, because I choose to get my medicine and my fuel from the natural cycle of things. It is the most dignified cycle. It is the least polluting cycle. It is the closest thing to Mother Earth and spiritualism on this planet and in this birth-death cycle, and I'm not going to give it up to people with the mentality of George Bush without a fight. As it turns out, I'm the most conservative candidate in the race. When I was growing up, conservative meant you kept the government in a little box. You did not let it out. Thomas Jefferson said the best government is the least government. These people had seen overgrown government before. They knew that you had to keep government to a bare bones minimum. George Bush and Ronald Reagan weren't conservatives, they were aliens. Ronald Reagan campaigned on taking government off the backs of business. He took government off the backs of big business and let them rape the S&Ls and the HUDs and take money out of social programs and cut back on aid for dependent children and milk to starving children. And he took it off the backs of big business and let them take over all the small companies and put it directly on the backs of the middle class and the middle age and the working men and women of this United States. And there's where the middle class has gone over the last 10 years. They have sacked us dry. They have become a centralized government. They want a controlled economy, and you can't have a controlled economy unless you have a controlled population. He's talking about a new world order, global order. I'm sure he envisions that as the petrochemical and pharmaceutical companies coming in and monopolizing everything and being the only people who can produce the basic substances of life. And now, you know, Eastern Europe, he should have learned a lesson from Eastern Europe, because they just kicked off a centralized government like that in a drive for political autonomy and individual autonomy, and we're going to mirror their effort here in the United States, and we're going to be just as successful as they've been. It's a worldwide movement, ladies and gentlemen. It's a worldwide movement of freedom and individual dignity, and where human life counts for something, and where we don't have 56 cops kicking or beating or hitting on somebody 56 times, and where we don't have 16,000 women in the city of Chicago strip search for minor traffic offenses. That's rape. It's the intrusion upon your body by somebody you don't want to have doing it. And that's rape. I don't give a damn whether they got a uniform on and a badge when they do it and they're sworn by the state. It's rape, and it's not going to happen in the state of Kentucky when I become governor. There's not going to be strip searches on women. You know, there is no reason why it cannot happen in the state of Kentucky. You've got to understand that I've been in this movement for 22 years. I've been looking at this for 22 years. 21 years ago, I was 24 years old and a milkman, and I decided I was going to go to college, become an attorney. I was going to run for governor or win it, and I was going to change marijuana laws in all of the United States and the rest of the world along with it. That was 20 years ago. That was 20 years ago, and what a long, strange trip it's been. But during that time, I've talked with hundreds of thousands of people. You know, I'm one of those irrepressible kind of guys who come out of Kentucky, and the way I explain it is there's only 4 places for an obnoxious, opinionated young man like me from Kentucky to go. That's jail, law, politics, or Tennessee. And I've been through the first 3, and I'd do anything to stay out of Tennessee, and I'm sure as hell not afraid to go back to jail again for defying the federal government. But my point is this, that George Bush and Ronald Reagan took that lid off government, and it's grown overly large and impingeful, is intruding not only into our personal habits, not only into our rooms, not only into our houses and our bedrooms, but into our bloodstreams. They are gotten it down now to where they want to biochemically monitor every individual and type them just as much by body makeup as they do by social security number. And this cannot afford to let happen in what's supposed to be the freest country in the world, ladies and gentlemen. We have to resist this with the very most that we can, and we need to do it politically. We cannot take them in the streets. We cannot take them in the streets. We've got to do it politically and by working within that system. I'm a native of Kentucky. I was born in Kentucky. Kentucky was the world's largest producer of hemp for over 100 years. It has a registry. It has a history and a heritage that is singular. Of all other states, it is singular. I talked to 65 and 70-year-old people by the thousands who played in fields of it when they were children. By thousands who helped their fathers or mothers plow the ground where they were going to put the hemp crop in. Whose own granddaddies had made their fortunes out of hemp. Who understand what this green natural plant is all about, what the farming heritage of making a living is when you grow a green natural plant that people want to buy in the cities. By God, you grow it, go in and sell it to them. That's a history and a heritage, and that's what they return to in great respect in the hills of Kentucky in the face of this prohibition for it as a medicine and as a recreational drug. And these people are ready to be heard. They cannot come out and state it publicly. I have come out and used the electoral process in the state of Kentucky to take the heat. I'll take the heat. I'll take the heat. They don't have to say anything. All they got to do is tell their own personal friends about it, and when they go into that voting booth, they've got to exercise a given right to vote. It's not a God-given right, ladies and gentlemen. Don't take it lightly. Don't take it lightly. There are thousands and tens of thousands of men and women who have endured untold hardship and death on faraway shores and in seas that will never sail. And people who have gone without for just the basic concept that I'm doing this to give my child a free society. And that free society is the power to vote in that voting booth. That is what Lech Walesa and those people have been demanding. That's what they've been demanding in Nicaragua. The free election and the free ballot. And if you don't understand, that's the bottom line for the exercise and control of power in this country. We're going to remain powerless, and we're going to let these vampires who are at the top right now continue to suck the lifeblood out of us. You got to get political, and you got to get political now. You are. This message is transgenerational, and I've got thousands of households in the state of Kentucky where I'm going to get the vote of the granddaddy and the grandmama and the mama and the daddy and the children too. This is transgenerational. It's going to cross all lines, and it's all being done under states' rights auspices so that everything that we accomplish in the state of Kentucky can be immediately implementable in the state of California and all those other states that had the bold vision to take care of the 90s in a much better way than the 80s were taken care of, and turn it back over to the people and get the government out of our bedrooms and out of our bloodstreams. This is the time for it. The election in Kentucky is for it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me run a few facts down to you, and then I'm going to ask you to take some of my material. But you've got to understand just how viable this thing is. In the state of Kentucky, which has this history and heritage of hemp, in 1983, I ran for Commissioner of Agriculture. I went to 16 out of 120 counties. I campaigned part-time for 9 months. I spent $8,200, and I got 43,137 votes, 19 cents each. Wallace Wilkinson, the present governor, spent $18 a vote. He won with 221,000 votes, 5 times what I got, but he spent 100 times what I spent. This time I have campaigned full-time for 22 months. Last time, the reason I got 43,000 votes was I got out 40,000 pieces of material hand to hand. That's how I got those votes. This time I need 250,000 votes to win it. I've gotten out 350,000 pieces of material. I've spent $112,000, and I've been campaigning full-time for 22 months. I've shaken 160,000 hands. I record is 5,500 in one day, and every one of them got a choice handed to them as I shook their hand. You got to work at it. You got to do it. We're poised in Kentucky. It's the confluence of many things. It's the obviously manifest inordinate sway that oil and petrochemicals have over our military and foreign policy. It is the absolute debacle that Congress put on this last time they said that they passed the budget. It is looking straight in the barrel of drug monopoly in this country, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's keeping health care and keeping medicine out of the hands of the people who need it the most. It's time we stood up and said Eli Lilly no longer gets a patent on this, or that at least the American farmer gets to grow hemp in competition with those pharmaceutical monopolies. As long as they stay in power, there's always going to be the homeless. These people have a $660 billion a year industry. By golly, they can turn over some of them fiddles, and I'd say about 100 billion of them over to the American farmer, and it would revitalize the rural economy in 10 and 20 southern states. It would allow people to stay on the land. Ladies and gentlemen, I need your help. I need your help. I've been on the road 22 months, and I raised just about $112,000. Kentucky's a poor state. Kentucky is dirt poor. I've gotten more contributions. I've had more contributors than any of the other candidates. And yet my contributions are averaging $5 and $6 and $8. And you can imagine, I have to have a hell of a lot of contributions averaging that to raise that kind of money. But I had a little help from a friend of mine named Willie Nelson, who called me up and said, Gatewood, I understand what it is you want to talk about. I'd like to come up to a concert for you, and I want to tell you one thing. If you can ever do something nice for a man named Willie Nelson, you do it because he deserves your support too. This man put himself on the line, and they came down on him, and he says, to hell with the Gatewood. It can't be 16 billion. It's more like 11 or 12. They exaggerate that kind of stuff all the time. But Willie is a super fine person. He stands for the small farmer and for individual freedom too, and we ought to be helping him out. But the fact is that I've got 37 days to go before my primary election. and I need to put out another 250,000 of these choice newspapers right here. That's going to cost me about $25,000 to do that, and I'm taking every opportunity I can to try and raise it. I have some choices being handed out to you folks out there, and they've got return envelopes in them, and they've got some material that I got from a real good friend of mine named Jack Hare and all his people. And before I end up this thing, I want to tell you one thing. In my opinion, one of the most brilliant people in this country today is Jack Hare. If it wasn't for Jack Hare, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. There's a lot of people who stand up and take heat out here, public heat, who depend on what Jack Hare put together. And Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Jack Hare has put out 100% of whatever combination it is, and I want us all to give an applause right here. I'll tell you, folks, I'm a winner in Kentucky. There is no about it, and I'll tell you exactly why I know. I trust elderly ladies' judgment. And I was telling these folks before I announced 22 months ago, I was telling them, I was talking to a group of about 6 or 7 elderly ladies, and I was telling them what it stood for, and there was 5 or 6 of them going, yeah, just like that, yeah, like that. And this one old lady was going like that. I said, what's the matter, ma'am? Don't you think I can win this election? She says, ha, Galbraith, you'll be elected governor of Kentucky when the Berlin Wall comes down. Thank you very much.
Spare cash for Gatewood. Spare cash.
Carol cooked this whole meal, man.
Yes. To Gatewood.
Make this possible, man.
Yeah.
Oops, spare cash here.
Carol.
Cash for
a lot of
Gatewood.
people work behind the scenes. Some people when you
Thank
saw
you.
up front, me, John,
Spare
people like
cash
this.
here.
I'd like to tell you, Carol
Cash
Mann,
for
sitting right
Gatewood.
here to my right from Sonoma County, prepared this meal, thought of it, got it to you. It was a
Spare
miracle to
cash
figure
here.
out days and days. Let's hear it for
Spare
Carol.
cash.
Many other Sonoma County
Yes.
friends. Thank you. Take care.
Spare cash.
Carol Mill from Sonoma County.
We have a little cookbook that has most of the recipes from tonight as well as some others. And the cookbooks are $1 each. They're up here. Thank you for sharing this lovely meal with us. By the way, the seeds are much better when they're live. Let's legalize it so we can eat live.